It's time for Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM. Presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here is your host, the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
As I was walking down the street one day.
It's a 4th of July Friday. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's getaway day for a lot of folks. Gosh, I'm glad I'm not flying. Man, is that a mess. United Airlines, they can't get their act together.
Seems like in the last year, a lot of airlines have had issues with things.
Well, it's much better than it was a year ago. There's still a lack of traffic control people. So if you're a young person looking for a job that pays pretty well, does have high stress, there's a need, learn how to become a air traffic controller. You'll make good money. But it is high stress, no doubt about that. United, though, gosh, they if you've got a flight with them, expect delays, changes, craziness. Or you can do like I like to do, drive. I love driving trips.
Dave, would you believe me if I told you I've never been on a plane?
I would not believe that.
It's not really true.
How old are you now?
I'm 23. I guess I should say.
By the way, this is Brian Takis filling in
Hello.
for Jane. But you hear Brian Takis every day from 3 to 6 on Sports Time with he.
And you're hearing me all day today, so I hope you enjoy my voice.
You are the holiday man.
I'm pulling the Jay Morgan shift where I'm up here all day. But,
is Stats off next week?
No. He'll be back next week.
Okay.
But he was off yesterday and today.
He's got to be miserable.
That was bad. He texted me, one of the funniest texts I've ever received from Brett last night. He said, very nice of Houston to only kick PATs and not go for two and run up the score on us.
Well,
very nice of them.
I got to tell you, he texted me after the Cardinals won Game 1. Giddy. And I wrote back rather sarcastically, congratulations. Didn't know you could win a series in the first game.
It's been a struggle.
And, he didn't have much to say after that. And then now he has not texted me one thing. Of course, the Cubs have lost, 4 in a row, I think, now? Hey, they were on the verge in the second game in London. If they beat the Cardinals, who stink, if they beat the Cardinals, they're 500.
Yeah.
And they haven't won a game since then. So I really can't say very much. I am curious, and we'll get into like the baseball all-star teams here in a minute, but I am really curious to see if the Cardinals will become sellers. What will they do about Arenado and Goldschmidt? I don't know exactly what they're going to do, but it'll be interesting to watch if they keep losing. And now they got a series with the Yankees. Whew. Back more on that in a second. I don't know. What do you think of John Rothstein? He's been on the air with us here. He is, I guess, he and Gary Parrish are pretty much the same position. They switch off for CBS and CBS Sports Net. Really, CBS Sports Net, mostly. And, of course, they both write for the CBS website, and they both do great jobs. John Rothstein wrote a story today that says the University of Memphis is 2 decisions away from being a absolute top 20 basketball team, and maybe better. And he goes back to last year, how good they were and how they were up 7 and should have won the game against Florida Atlantic. They got all the way to the Final Four. And I think Memphis would have been in that grouping. I really do. But they didn't get the timeout that was called. Interesting.
Yeah.
In these NCAA tournaments now, I've witnessed a couple of watershed moments where officiating had a major role in the outcome of one was the national title, and the other was if you get a timeout, you win the game. Now, Kendrick Davis, as great as he was, he also lost his mind in that game. All he had to do was wait to get fouled. But and more on him in a minute, too, because who knew this? But he actually could have signed with the Grizzlies and been on that summer league team, elected to go with Golden State, and will be a teammate of Lester Quinones. But back to this thing that John Rothstein wrote. The 2 decisions are really not in their hands, right? They are in the hands of, one, the NCAA, two, one young man named Javon Quinterly.
Yeah.
So his thought process on this, and it's true, if Quinterly joins this team as the point guard, that takes this team a long way.
Mm-hmm.
The second, he's not KD, but he's pretty good. And now you'd have two really solid guys with Young, because Young can play backup on that. Young could be a starter as a shooting guard if need be. Just depends on how it all works out in training camp and competition within the team. But if you had that option, whoo, pretty darn good. And then the other is, will DeAndre Williams be granted another year of eligibility? And anybody says they know that for sure, well, they're probably lying. But if you go by precedent, and the lawyer, Don Jackson, for DeAndre Williams, makes the point through precedent that this is a no-brainer. And I think there is a sense around the U of M that Williams is going to come back. If you get those two guys, go back to last year's roster. I think we touched on this for a second yesterday, but I never put it in these terms. This roster, if you get Quinterly and Williams, forget Mikey Williams. I don't know what happens there. We'll find out July 12th. But he's a freshman anyway. If you get DeAndre Williams for another year and you get this guy, who, by the way, would be 24 when he plays,
Yeah.
and he's going to play somewhere. 27, 24. Wow.
Jordan Brown's 23 or 24.
I think yeah, I think that's right. This team will be older than the Grizzlies.
Sure will be.
That won't be. It really won't
Be close,
but it'll
though.
be very close.
Yeah.
Because finally those young Grizzlies are getting
maybe
older.
older than the Houston Rockets. They got a bunch of young guys.
Yeah, and they're not going to have James Harden, who, by the way, that was big news today.
Mm-hmm.
James Harden signed his deal with the Sixers only to be traded. So they're saying Clippers, Knicks. We'll talk with Andy Schiffman, by the way. A lot of NBA stuff coming your way in the very next segment. But I'll ask you point blank, if you get Williams and you get Quinterly to go with all these other guys, including J.J. Taylor, Sharonat, those are two really solid guys for sure. Hardaway's son, and who's the other freshman?
J.J. Taylor. Did I say him?
I said him. J.J. Taylor.
J.J.
Oh, it's Mikey Williams.
Well, yeah.
So
Who knows about him?
Yeah, right. But with those three plus if you get your point guard answer and you get DeAndre Williams back, that team on paper is better than last year's team, because last year's team had two really good players and a bunch of inconsistent role players.
Yeah. I mean, we had Greg Gaston on the show yesterday afternoon, and we kind of had the same discussion, and he made a good point that last year's team was very top-heavy. I mean, you had Kendrick Davis, you had DeAndre. When either one, if both those guys were not playing or one was off for a night, it got a little scary in some of those games. And you kind of look at the transfers they brought in last year. You had one from UTEP. You had one from Georgia Southern. You know, it was not saying anything was wrong with those players. Those players came in and were big parts.
Damari Franklin, who
didn't play for a long time.
Chicago.
Yeah, and so take it for what you will. But I mean, you're getting a guy from St. John's. You're getting a guy who won the award that goes to mid-major players last year and played a big role for a Louisiana team that went to the tournament last year. You could get a point guard from Alabama.
Well, let's put it like this, because you're in this business, or used to be in this business with recruiting.
Yeah.
So you've got Quinterly, 5-star.
Yep.
You got Jordan Brown, McDonald's All-American, and 5-star. You've got, with J.J. Taylor and Sharon Font, 4 stars.
And J.J. Taylor really should be a 5-star, but
You've got DeAndre Williams, who's all-conference. And he's back, right?
Yeah.
I mean, he's the one guy. Now you'd have 2 returning players, Jaden Hardaway and DeAndre Williams. I think in all your years of looking at this, which are not that many, obviously, just 23. But in my years, and I've been doing this since the 70s, I don't think I've ever seen, because the whole game has changed and the rules have changed, but I've never seen where a college basketball team had one returning player.
It's crazy.
Or two, and that would be the best case scenario if DeAndre Williams came back. But, wow.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
And it's wild to think that, I mean, just, 3 weeks ago when you kind of looked up and it was you only have one returning player from last year's team and it's the son of the head coach, everyone was, I don't want to say in panic, but there was a lot of concern around what is this team going to look like, how's this team going to mesh together, and now we're talking about 2 decisions away from being a top 20 team. It's really impressive what Coach Hardaway's done.
Oh, well, he pulls it out of the hat.
Every year.
Every single year. This one, if he gets Quinterly and Williams
Huge.
is able to come back, this would be the biggest moves that I think it would be the best roster he's had.
I think so. I mean,
The only one when you got all those guys,
Yeah.
but they were freshmen.
But they were freshmen.
You had Boogie, Lester, who else?
Damian Ball.
Yeah, who by the way played really good for TCU last
He
year.
was big for TCU.
Yeah. That had five or well, James
Precious
Wiseman?
was in that
Precious,
class.
James
yeah.
Wiseman.
James Wiseman, 3
On
games,
paper,
yeah. It was great.
that was a great class.
Yeah.
But of course, Wiseman never played. But that made Precious Achua a first-round draft choice. Boogie, at the end of the year, started to live up to the hype, and he's been a great player at USC.
Has been. He's back
Ball's
this
been
year
a great
too.
player at TCU, but you only have one ball. You can only have 2 guards in the backcourt.
Yep.
It probably had to evolve that way, that's for sure. I'm sitting in the Family Leisure studio. They got a brand new sale now. It is the summer clearance sale. All do-it-yourself pools, you get $1,000 off. Special 24-foot round pools are less than $2,000. Select play gyms down to $18.99, and patio furniture you can get 30% off. And a 24-month same-as-cash financing is available during this summer clearance sale. And, of course, you know our title sponsor. That's Homer Skelton Hyundai and Genesis in Olive Branch. And not all Hyundai dealerships can sell Genesis luxury cars made by the same company, but they definitely are separate. And they're just so good at the corner of Highway 78, that's Lamar, and the first exit in Mississippi Craft Road that, of course, they sell both because they take care of their customers, and they got a deal right now on a G70. That's the smaller sports car. If you finance with Genesis, why wouldn't you? They will give you a $1,000 rebate. Woo! It pays to do business with Homer Skelton Hyundai and Genesis of Olive Branch. So they announced the All-Star starters now. Interesting to me. American League, 4 Rangers. Well, they have the best record.
Oh, I was so happy to say they get 4.
Well, they have the best record in their division. The best record in the American League in baseball is the Tampa Bay Rays. They only got 2, but they got 2. The Angels had 2. Of course, Ohtani's going to be in there as a DH. Only 1 Yankee, and he's a guy that's not even playing for the moment because he's injured, in Aaron Judge. So that was a little different. National League also was interesting to me because you had 3 Braves. They got the best record in the National League. You got 3 Dodgers that are a game that are behind the Arizona Diamondbacks. And the Diamondbacks only got 1, and that's a rookie in Corbin Carroll. So I thought that was a little Now, so I really should know this, but I can't remember. That's voting by the fans, right?
Yes.
So that makes sense. Texas has Dallas, even Houston in there that might be voting. By the way, 0 Astros on the American League team. 0 Astros. So the people in Dallas voted heavily. In California, to get a couple of Angels, who wouldn't vote Ohtani though?
After the first
that.
round, you couldn't even. He was locked. I mean, he was already picked. He had gotten so many votes.
Well, what about in Tampa? They don't vote in Florida. They don't.
True.
Tampa's very
Yeah.
small. Tampa St. Pete.
Right.
To get 2 Rays, of course, with the best record in baseball and the great start they had, you would have thought that there would be more. They vote in Atlanta. They vote in L.A. That's the same thing with the Angels to get 2 in there. Apparently, they don't vote in Arizona because they're better than the Dodgers, yet they got 1 guy in, and that was it.
Yeah, well, your guy, Jay Morgan, he'll bring his computer in for like the couple of weeks that voting was first open. He would go every day. You'd get like 5 votes per day. He would go through, he would vote 5 times, and he had a chart where he would have all the percentages of times he had voted for different peoples.
I don't think there's any Marlins on there.
It doesn't look like it, so he didn't do a good job. But
Apparently not.
You'll have to ask him when he comes back about all the percentages and who made it off of all the guys he picked.
By the way, 25 years ago, Sports Illustrated's cover commemorated this major baseball happening, rebirth, race. Do you know what I'm talking about?
No idea
This
what
is
you're talking about.
obviously 2 years before you're born. But you
Yeah.
know that baseball, seriously, 25 to 30 years ago is really in trouble. People
Yeah.
weren't coming to the ballpark. Everybody was down on everybody. And there had been a strike. Fans hadn't gotten over that. Prices were starting to increase because they had to pay the players so much more money. And the first really feel-good story that got folks back into baseball was the breaking of the consecutive games played streak by Cal Ripken.
Yeah.
That was really a great feel-good story, and ESPN was really starting to
Sure.
strengthen itself nationwide as what it was. And that might probably came a little bit before, but they would cut in on every game and all that other stuff. But the next thing that really solidified and made baseball incredibly popular, 25 years ago, Sports Illustrated commemorated the race between Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa for Home Run Kings. And that, speaking of which, ESPN would break in on every Sammy Sosa at bat, on every Mark McGwire at bat. It was really quite a lot of fun. And it's hard to believe that was literally 25 years ago, 2 years before the guy Brian Dacus, I'm
Right.
looking at him, was even born. That is absolutely amazing to me. Why do you think Kendrick Davis decided to go San Francisco, Golden State, as opposed to the Grizzlies? Because apparently he could have signed with that summer league team too. Does he think his game fits better at Golden State? Which I'm not sure it does, because you got to shoot threes, and that's not his strength. He's a great passer. He's a great ball handler. He can score in the hole. I don't think he'll be that successful in the hole in the NBA like he was in the collegiate ranks. But I'm really curious about that decision. It's one of the things that we're going to ask Andy in just a little bit when we step up and chat with Andy Schiffman, our agent in Chicago. You got any hunch?
I have no idea. I mean, to me, it screams there had to have been something there, either his agent or somebody told him that the opportunity in Golden State would be better than in Memphis. Whether it was they were guaranteeing some sort of deal where he would be on the G League team or a two-way or something, the deal had to have been better with Golden State than with Memphis.
Well, one of the other things that we found out, which I had no clue about, was that Indiana had said they were going to use the 55th overall pick, which late second round, but still.
That'd been huge.
That they were going to use that on him, and I don't know, who did they take? Can you
I don't know. Yeah, I'll look it up.
Look that up really quick. I don't know why they opted not to do that, which I'm sure would have been a great thing for him, because you get drafted, you're getting some guarantee money as a two-way guy or whatever, and we're going to get all this all figured out with Andy Schiffman.
Isaiah Wong.
Okay,
From Miami.
Yeah, well, he was a good player. He was a really good player. Certainly more NBA prototype than KD. Maybe they didn't think Wong would be there at that point, and so they opted to go that way. So, and then he had his choice. And he's got buddies, Morant and, of course, Desmond Bane. He spent a year with at TCU, and they're really tight. I think they work out together. So I am a little surprised he went that route. Now, we'll ask Schiffman if he can figure out why. Here's what I want Andy to sort through for us. What what's the Exhibit 10 contract? 2A, regular G League, and now the new thing that Quinones just signed, which is a qualifying offer, which I believe is really a glorified 2A, but we'll find out from our agent in just a little bit. This portion of the show is brought to you by Conway. Conway Services, heating, cooling, plumbing, and electric. I said yesterday how they took care of me. Man, I've slept so good the last couple of nights, even in the heat, because I had a problem, and they came out and they bailed me out. 384-3511. And to make sure you don't have a problem, check out the $69 tune-up. Now, normally that saves you. Sometimes, like I have an 18-year-old system, you're eventually going to get old. But if 18 years is a long time. Usually they last 15. Mine lasted 18 years. You know why? Because I did the tune-up twice a year. $69, 16 points. They come in, they figure out everything. They tune everything out with those 16 points. Then they go outside, clean your outside units. You're efficient, so you save money on your MLGW bill. And as I mentioned, your system might last 18 years. You can't beat it. 384-3511. That's the number for Conway. And a quick reminder, at Miramichi, they got a lot of water out on the golf course. They know it's hot, and they got a lot of shaded areas if you're looking to play the heat. Because, look, it's the holiday weekend, and you're sick of staying in. I know it's hot. They're aware of it out there. So make sure you check that out. Although I've just been told, and I got to double check on this, I'm going to do this during the break, they've had a power issue, and they've had some trees down. So we'll double check on the status of Miramichi. We'll do that during the break. We take that time out. We go to, I think, a much cooler Chicago, Illinois, although they got problems with the Canadian fires and air quality. What a world we live in, huh? We go to Chicago momentarily with Andy Schiffman as you listen to Wolo and Friends.
Add a little fun to your lunch break. Join Johnny Radio for Sports 56 Happy Hour from 11 to 1 every weekday on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
Visit Frontier Western Store today for new shirts and boots. Frontier is your top Carhartt store in the Mid-South. There's thousands of in-stock shirts and jeans. They have the classic K87 pocket tee in every color they make, including new ones just released. Available small to 4X. Want new jeans? Frontier has you covered with super tough work denim by Carhartt. And you've got to check out their selection of Ariat jeans for men, women, and children. You'll love how easy it is to find the size and style you need. Have you seen Frontier's remodeled world-famous boot showroom? It continues to expand. New styles by Ariat just arrived, plus plenty of in-stock proven classics too. Whether you need work or dress boots, trust that Frontier's the place to come. See thousands of pairs of Ariat boots and thousands more by Dan Post, Corral, Durango, Rocky, Twisted X, and others. And Frontier's pricing is lower than online and chain stores, so you know just the local shop to visit. Frontier Western Store, 5880 Goodman Road in Olive Branch, and on the web at frontierwesternstore.com. Locally owned and operated since 1967.
Hi, this is Troy Fiveash, owner of Fiveash Roofing. In these uncertain economic times, there are so many things as a contractor and a business owner that I cannot control. The rising cost of materials, not to mention fuel and transportation costs. In the last 2 years, shingle prices have almost doubled, and commercial materials have doubled. And I don't have to tell you what fuel costs these days. But you know what I can control? How much markup I put on a project. I have always prided myself in knowing I never gouge a customer. But in an effort to ensure my crews have work and my customers are being treated fairly, I have lowered my profit margin, hoping to give you a price you can live with and keeping my crews busy. So if you need a roof or gutters, please give us a call. Fiveash Roofing, fair, honest, and ethical. Fiveash Roofing, a proud sponsor of Tiger Athletics and a member of the Tigers home team. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com. 367-0050 or memphisroofer.com.
Fiveash Roofing, it's what we do. We're here for you.
It's the season for a new ride from Gossett Chrysler Jeep Dodge Ram Fiat 1901 Covington Pike. Talk about huge savings. Gossett's got 2023 Dodge Charger SXT, and we Gossett at $30,990 or $428 a month. You ready to roam? How about a 2023 Jeep Gladiator Sport 4x4? We Gossett now just $640 a month, and you'll find Dodge Muscle in your 2022 Dodge Charger Scat Pack. We're talking $4,000 off at Gossett, and if we don't don't have exactly what you're looking for, Gossett will order it for you today. So drive past the rest and come to the best at Gossett on the Pike or shop online at GossettMotorCars.net.
If you want it, we got it at Gossett Motor Cars.
84 months at 6.99 APR, 3,500 down. Charger PH 504,815, MSRP 35,630. Gladiator PL 55,6199, MSRP 52,970. Charger NH 267,934, MSRP 57,715. Includes all rebates and incentives. PF 695 excludes tax, title, and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offer valid through the end of the month. Dealer stock only.
Now back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
We head to Chicago in a minute. Our agent from Priority Sports, Andy Schiffman, is standing by. It's brought to you by Sheldon. 1912, 1900, 1911, 1853, now 1837. Those are years I'm talking about. And Sheldon, with Mark Spensdorf, has just sold one of the oldest homes in Shelby County. He really prides himself on selling homes across the age spectrum, as he can sell yours, whether it was built in the 1800s, 1900s, 2000s, or maybe it's only 2 years old. He can sell it all. He may have the worst golf game in town, rarely makes a par, and forget about birdies. But he knows real estate. That's why his golf game's so bad. He spends all of his time taking care of his clients with that highly successful strategic marketing program. That's why he'll tell guys, talk to 2 or 3 brokers, make sure he's one of them at 483-0546 or MemphisRelocate.com. That's right, relocate's his middle name. MemphisRelocate.com, 483-0546. Sheldon is waiting for your phone call. To Chicago. Let us go, and our friend Andy Schiffman. So I know it's cooler in Chicago, but you guys, I think this morning, according to the Today Show, had the worst air quality because of those Canadian fires in the country today. Can you breathe all right?
All is good. It's actually a bit warmer. It feels like 90 degrees outside today, but the air quality was much worse a couple of days ago, earlier this weekday, from those Canadian wildfires. So getting better. I think it was at its peak probably like Tuesday or Wednesday this week for us, though.
Let me just say this to you. 90 degrees, we take in a heartbeat. It's literally...
Exactly. That's a fall day in Memphis.
It's going to be over 100 today with a feel like 117. 117!
I don't miss those days.
Whoo, baby. That is absolutely crazy. All right, I got some questions for you. Are you ready?
Lay it on me.
All right. I want you to explain to us what an Exhibit 10 contract is, what a two-way deal means, what a regular G League deal might be, and what is a qualifying offer like Lester Quinones just signed with the Golden State Warriors. So there's 4 different entities. I think qualifying offer and two-way are similar, but I'm not 100% certain, so please give us the specifics.
Sure. No, they're all good questions. So to start off, an Exhibit 10 contract. It's something relatively new in recent years in the NBA. An NBA team can offer what's called an Exhibit 10 contract to a player, no matter how long the player's been in the NBA, whether he's a rookie, undrafted, what have you. And that means an Exhibit 10 contract. It's a regular minimum contract, non-guaranteed, with no money guaranteed to that player. And an Exhibit 10 is, as it sounds, an exhibit named Exhibit 10, because it's the 10th exhibit in that contract, is inserted into the contract. That provides that if the player gets cut from that team's training camp, it's only applicable during preseason and training camp, then that player, if he signs the Exhibit 10 contract, he can only go play if he goes to play in the G League for that team's G League team. So if it was Memphis, let's say, it's the Memphis Hustle. If it's the Warriors and Quinones, it's Santa Cruz Warriors. And if you go and play and sign in by the sign-in deadline for the G League, which is usually towards the end of October, and you remain with that G League team for 60 consecutive days from the start of training camp. And then G League training camp usually starts right around the beginning of November. So hypothetically, let's say it's November 1. If you remain with that team for 60 straight days, then the Exhibit 10 kicks in that provides for a $50,000 bonus on top of your G League salary. Last year was $35,000. think they bumped it up a little bit more this year. So I think the total salary with an Exhibit 10 is going to be upwards of $90,000. Okay. Not every G League player gets an Exhibit 10. There's a limit on what you can get. Then the next level up is a two-way contract, if you hinted. So those are also relatively new the last several years in the NBA. In the past, every team can have two-way contracts at one time. This next year, you can have 3 two-way contracts. And it's kind of like a in between an Exhibit 10 or a G League deal compared to a regular roster spot. There's a limit on the number of regular roster spots on each NBA team for the regular contract, anywhere between, from a minimum on up of 15. Now, with these 3 two-ways, teams can sign players to two-way contracts, and it gives that player the ability to play up to 50 games on an NBA roster as a two-way player. And when those 50 games are exhausted, then the NBA team has a mechanism in the two-way contract they signed to then convert that player to a regular roster spot. The Grizzlies did that, I think, with Kenny Lofton. Yeah. They've done that with my guy Killian Tilly a few years ago. And then that they're converted to just whatever that minimum salary is in the NBA. The most, after those 50 games have been exhausted. Or
the minimum salary is almost $1 million, right?
It's over $1 million now.
Oh, it's over $1 million. Okay.
It's gone up and up. When I started doing this, it was just over $500,000. So it shows you the trajectory of the NBA. And so on a two-way, or if the team doesn't want to convert you, you can just remain in the G League the rest of the year, still on the two-way contract. And if you're on a two-way for the whole year, not getting converted, and you do play all 50 games in the NBA, you're going to make a total of around $550,000. And you cannot guarantee all that. The most you can get guaranteed is about half that amount by opening night. So that's been changed. When you sign a two-way, you can have $75,000 guaranteed of it. That's the most you can have guaranteed right off the bat. And then you can negotiate if that player on the two-way is still on the two-way come opening night in the NBA season, you could have about $250,000 guaranteed of that. And then I think the third point, what was your third point? Before I go into Lester and the qualifying offer.
I think that was it. It was the Exhibit 10, the two-way, and what a regular G League is, which you said is $35,000. So
yeah.
So
then Lester was on a two-way with Golden State, if I remember correctly, right, this past season.
Right, but he just got a qualifying offer. So what does that mean for him?
Yeah. So players who have spent 3 years or less in the NBA. So if it's second round draft, excluding first round draft picks. So if it's second round draft picks, if it's a player coming off a two-way, they're what's called, they could become what's called a restricted free agent. Today starts free agency officially, and you can begin to start talking with NBA teams tonight at 5 o'clock our time. And so that's, free agency. That encompasses players who are unrestricted free agents, like a Dylan Brooks, and players who are restricted free agents. We have some of those. And so Lester, in this case, the way you become restricted, if you're a player coming off a two-way contract, as Lester is, or an NBA player that spent 3 years or less in the NBA, your team has to give you what's called a qualifying offer. And there's a deadline by which they have to do that. And if they give you the qualifying offer, and I'll explain exactly what that is in a second, then that makes you restricted. If they do not give you the qualifying offer, then you are unrestricted. You can sign with any team anywhere. So the qualifying offer, the amount of that is calculated off of your prior salary in terms of in the NBA. In Lester's case, not necessarily on an NBA contract, but putting off a two-way contract, his qualifying offer is just another two-way. So that means if he wants to sign what's called a qualifying offer, right, with the Warriors, that he's back there unless they decide to pull the qualifying offer. So they rescind the qualifying offer, which has happened in the past. Maybe there's someone else they like more they didn't think was available. That's happened before. If that were the case, then he would become unrestricted. But if they give him a qualifying offer, as long as that's out there, he could go out there and shop around and try and sign with any other team. But the Warriors have a right to match whatever offer he gets. That's what restricted is.
I believe he did sign that qualifying offer. So, and let's just say, I'll make this up, the Indiana Pacers. And they say, oh, we like him. Then what kind of an offer, or any NBA team, what kind of an offer could he expect that either Golden State matches or lets him go, but he makes?
Well, if he signs a qualifying offer, then it's a done deal. He's back with the Warriors. That's it. He's under contract for the next year on a two-way. If that qualifying offer is still on the table, and usually you negotiate that and just try to have a good feel of how long that's going to be there for you before you have to make a decision, because they could pull it. They could easily pull it, and then you're left without that offer. And so you have to know the market. So realistically, for a player like that, I would say this. Theoretically, any team could give any offer to Leicester. They could say, here's a 4-year deal for $30 million if you want to sign that. Practically speaking, that's not happening. I think realistically for him, there might be other situations that he would look at that would offer more opportunity on a two-way, to maybe where it's a worse team, and you as a young player on a two-way might get more opportunity than you did compared to a veteran-laden team like Golden State that's trying to compete and win a championship again. So maybe he's going out there and exploring to say, okay, well, if I don't have an opportunity to get a guaranteed minimum contract somewhere, then is there a better opportunity elsewhere on a two-way? And you run the risk, because obviously the longer that drags out, the team can rescind your offer and then you're left with nothing. But again, you have to have a pulse on the market. You have to be communicating with your team so they understand what you'd like to achieve with the notion of having that other qualifying offer there at the backstop, so you protect your downside.
So best case scenario for Lester Quinones, who, by the way, played 5 games last year with the Warriors. So Steve Kerr has some faith in him.
Sure.
What is the best case scenario that's realistic for Quinones this year? Let's say he stays with Golden State.
I think realistically it's another two-way. I know their roster construction right now and kind of what they're looking for. They're only going to have minimum contracts to spend unless they make some more trades and free up some money. They are, I believe, they're the most expensive team in the NBA, them and the Clippers, in terms of being well into the tax, which really, really restricts them, not only from being able to sign players to anything more than a minimum, but also in terms of making a trade. They're very restricted in what they can take back. So they're really restricted as a team. They do not have a whole lot of flexibility. And I think best case scenario with Leicester and the Warriors is another two-way, but maybe there's some sort of understanding that can be worked out to where there's opportunity on the back end of that, or there's some sort of, understanding that this is going to lead to a roster spot during the year, and he's going to get that if they make a move. So there's all sorts of discussions being had, I think, this time of year. But again, if you have no leverage and there's no other team out there that is interested in a two-way, just to stay in the NBA, Dave, you should go ahead and sign that qualifying offer.
All right. Now, I know this is speculation on your part, and we're asking you for it. But KD, who we have been told was told by the Indiana Pacers they were going to use their 55th pick on him, and they ended up going with Isaiah Wong, which is understandable in my mind. But he then could have gone with the Grizzlies, chose to go with San Francisco, the Golden State Warriors. Why do you think he made that move?
And then did he sign an Exhibit 10 with the Warriors, or what did he sign?
I don't think it's an Exhibit 10. I think it's just a free agent contract to
summer league.
It's just a summer league contract, I think.
Well, I think one factor, again, I'm not his agent, so I don't know the detailed discussions there. But, Dave, I do know, like the Grizzlies, I believe they have all 3. As we mentioned, there's 3 available two-way contracts. I believe they're all spoken for with the Grizzlies. I think the Warriors do have at least one open. They may have multiple ones open. So maybe he looked at that and said, well, just on paper, there's more opportunity to potentially try and get a two-way with a team like the Warriors right now versus a team like the Grizzlies. I want to say that the Grizzlies, obviously, they're going to probably put G.G. Jackson, their second-round pick, on a two-way. I know the other kid they drafted from Turkey is probably going to remain over there.
Yeah, he's a draft and stash, right?
Yeah, he's a good player, too, for no one that knows. He's on the best team in Turkey, which is a high-level EuroLeague team. And so I just think with the Grizzlies, there's, again, another team. They are very, very limited in what they can do and what they can spend. We've talked about it before on this show. They do have access to their full non-taxpayer mid-level, which is all the way up to $12.2 million this year. They went out and made that move and really good trade and got involved with that to get Marcus Smart. I think that really bolsters up their backcourt, so I don't really know how much they're prioritizing someone like Kendrick. And the other thing is, look, like Kendrick is a small scoring guard in a point guard body. He's a smaller guard. He can score in every which way. I think the Grizzlies they kind of had that last year with Kennedy Chandler, and obviously they had to make some moves, and they ended up waiving Kennedy. I don't think they're really in the market for another small guard. Maybe that has something to do with it. I'm not sure. This is, as you said, this is all speculation.
Sure.
I think the biggest thing is if I'm representing a player like that and he goes undrafted, I'm trying to put him in the best possible position to have a path to at least get a two-way or to go in and compete for a two-way. I want to know that if I'm going to send my player to your team, and for the level of player he's at, it's a little bit naive to think that he's going to go in and get a guaranteed contract right off the bat. But hey, realistically, he could definitely go out there and earn a two-way. Show me a path where he can do that. And some of these teams will say, well, we have this guy prioritized on the two-way. We have this guy that already has that two-way at that position. There's really little opportunity here. It's just not going to happen.
All right, you also mentioned the mid-level exception. That part of the beauty of that Marcus Smart trade was that they left that 15th spot open to use the $12.2 mil. Some people go, they should only use it for a year. Maybe if they got tax issues, they shouldn't even spend all 12.2. I tend to think they need a wing guy because that's their biggest weakness. What do you think they will do with that 12.2? And is there the possibility of parlaying a sign and trade with Dylan Brooks somewhere to get that 3 and D wing?
Yeah, you can definitely work out a sign and trade with Dylan. The worry there becomes like, what are you taking back? And then you're just adding to your salary cap. And if you have to be careful if you're Memphis, because with these extensions they recently entered into with John, Jaren Jackson, obviously, and and you're going to have
Bane's going to get his money.
Exactly. And so, and I think that you have to be very careful about what you could go out there and get and take back. I think if you can somehow work a sign and trade, and maybe you work a team like Houston. I've heard Dylan is probably going to end up in Houston.
I've heard that
what
too.
I'm hearing.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think if you I don't think Houston would do it, but maybe you work out a move where Houston has tons of cap space, so you could potentially sign Dylan and then trade him into Houston's cap space, and then you create yourself what's called a trade exception if you're Memphis, if you don't take back any players, which is very valuable because then during the season, and it's valid for about a year, you can then accept a player making all the way up to Dylan's salary that you just signed him for without having to give anything up. You basically take him into what that trade exception is, and not even having to touch your mid-level for that. I don't think that's likely. I think really they're just going to let Dylan walk, and he's probably going to end up signing here pretty soon with Houston, and that'll be that. But as you said, I do think they are going to try and prioritize a big wing shooter. Obviously, Luke Kennard helps. I think they want to try and upgrade a little bit there. They're going to have the money to do so. So it remains to be seen who they'll go after. But I think that's the position of need now compared to adding Marcus that's going to help in your backcourt. I think they're good on all the bigs they have. So I think they're definitely locked in on trying to find a really good wing, 3-and-D player, 6'7", 6'8", high-level perimeter player. And I think that's their focus.
Great stuff as always. Hey, we're off next week for the 4th of July. Stay cool and get some clean air in Chicago. And we thank you as always.
Thanks a lot, Dave.
That's our man in Chicago. That is Andy Schiffman. Okay, weekend's just about here. And I saw Eddie Connor yesterday. I love talking to Eddie. Learned a lot about some bourbons yesterday. Also learned a little bit about tequila. And now there are so many more upscale tequilas and the new process that a lot of these companies are using to literally make tequila better. You want to find out stuff like that and get great prices and have the convenience of being in the heart of East Memphis? Please go see my guy at Eddie Connor at the Spirit Shop. And this portion of the show is also brought to you by the Eflin Insurance Team. Matt knows it's a big decision you're making. He does, because you're protecting your family. And he's going to figure out, when he knows what your budget is, exactly how he can protect you with home insurance, with an auto program, or life insurance. That's critical. He'll figure it out with your budget to protect you the best way. Same thing with commercial insurance. If you've got a small to mid-sized business, that's his specialty. He'll know you, your product, your employees, your budget, and then he protects you. His number, 901-386-GER. That's 901-386-4777. Get protected the right way with a guy who loves the Tigers. GER's in his phone number. That's the Eflin Insurance Team. We are back in just a minute. And we'll get the latest update on Tiger football recruiting because, believe it or not, they're in the heart of the 2024 class. Brian Dacus has all your answers when we return.
Broadcasting from the Family Leisure Studio, we are Sports 56 and 98.5 FM.
All 650 acquisition fee, 30,000 miles, 20 cents excess mileage, K5 PG 211,771, MSRP 26,152, Sportage P17 3696, MSRP 27,077, EV6 P560 3394, MSRP 50,325. Includes all rebates and incentives. Must finance through Hyundai. Excludes tax title and license with approved credit. See dealer for complete details. Offers valid through 6/30/23. Dealer stock only. Warranties and limited powertrain warranty. See Kia.com or retailer for details. Hey, Jeff Allen, I hear the summer sales event is up and ready to command the road at Gossett Kia South Mount Moriah.
You heard right, Randy. The summer sales event is bringing you the World Performance Car. 2023 Kia EV6 Wind EPA estimate range 310 miles, now $499 a month, $49.99 due at signing. Plus a 2023 Kia Sportage LX, only $288 a month, $34.99 due at signing. And a luxury 2023 Kia K5 LXS, $299 a month, $31.99 due at signing. All 36-month lease.
And you always get Kia's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain limited warranty.
So whether you live in Horn Lake, South Haven, Olive Branch, or Memphis, you'll be happy at Gossett Kia on Mount Moriah.
2680 Mount Moriah or KiaMountMoriah.com.
Baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Because right now, new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's $1,000 back in bonus bets if your first bet doesn't win. Just go to FanDuel.com/win to join today. You could bet the spread, money lines, player props, and the over-under on runs, all with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So don't miss your chance to snag a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/win to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. Major League Baseball trademarks used with permission.
21 plus and present in Tennessee. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. Gambling problem? Call TN Redline 1-800-889-9789.
Okay, I'll flip you for it. Nope. Only one of us can be the guy that's overly obsessed with Central Barbecue.
Me? No one loves Central Barbecue more than me.
No, that's me. I've been honking Central Barbecue for years, so heads or tails?
Not fair. Look, I love every single thing on the Central Barbecue menu.
Oh, you do not.
I do so. Every single thing.
What about the vegan options? You love those?
I don't love the idea of eating the vegan option at Central Barbecue, but I do love that they have the items available for those that do.
All right, I got to give it to you. That was a pretty good dodge.
Because I love Central Barbecue.
We've run out of time for the coin toss.
Yes.
Now, back to Wolo and Friends on Sports 56 and 98.5 FM, presented by Homer Skelton Hyundai. Here once again is the voice of the Tigers, Dave Woloshin.
Lonely feeling deep inside.
We got breaking news. It's surprising, too. 11 minutes ago, The Athletic broke this story. ESPN has let go of NBA analysts Jeff Van Gundy and Jalen Rose amid a round of cost-saving layoffs. The network reportedly will include 20 on-air personalities. I wonder if Neil Everett, who was let go after all these years, was part of those cuts. Van Gundy has confirmed the news to The Athletic. Another source confirmed Rose. Both of them been around ESPN since 2007.
Crazy.
So that's 16 years that these guys, and I liked Van Gundy.
Mm-hmm.
Some people haven't liked it. I thought of the two, I liked his analysis better than I liked Mark Jackson's, who was going to remain.
Yep.
And apparently now the replacements, they could end up being Doris Burke, who I love and came up with. I did games with Doris Burke.
Oh, did you really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
She and I did, I think, a total of 4 or 5 NCAA women tournament games. Love her. She was, well, we both came up at the same time.
Sure.
Look where she is. Talented. And then it's either Doris, J.J. Redick, who I'm not a big fan of, honestly, or recently fired, and he's good, Doc Rivers.
I do like Doc Rivers.
I guess Mark Jackson will be included in all that.
Yeah.
I'm hoping Mike Green's coming back.
I hope so, too.
And,
it's crazy what's going on in ESPN.
Well, they're just, apparently Disney is saying, you guys got a cut.
One, they're paying Pat McAfee to come over a ton of money. It's
You know why? Because they were losing some of the ratings to the Fox College pregame show.
I love the Fox.
Do you
Saturday.
really?
Oh,
See,
I think it's so good.
I don't think it can touch.
Well, it's like nobody can
ESPN.
touch College Game Day, but I do like flipping over to Fox because they have all the former players and coaches.
I can't stand Urban Meyer.
Well, that's a good point. Hard to get over that.
I wonder if Corso's going to come back at all this year.
That's a good question.
But Pat McAfee, I honestly think they panicked when they made that hire because that dude is making so much money.
Whew.
Between his radio show, which is Sirius XM,
and it's going to come over to ESPN starting in the fall. It's going to be on ESPN every day.
But they're paying him so much money. It's scary. So anyway, all right. Before we run out of time here, we are right in the heart of the. I guess this is the later signing period, right?
No, this is the way early.
Oh yeah,
this is
yeah.
2024.
You're right. I'm sorry. So the first week in February, that Wednesday, that's the class. That's they're coming this year.
Correct.
Those are the freshmen for this year. This is for next year's high school class that will officially sign in February.
Yes, these are rising seniors.
All right. So I must confess, the list that I have seen so far is a bunch of guys that Memphis is in competition with from their own conference or Sun Belt teams, things of that nature. I haven't seen Daily Memphian and Tim Buckley does a good job of keeping up with the class that's signed. He doesn't speculate on who's going to sign, but he does a good job of keeping up with that. I haven't seen Memphis steal any player away at this point from a Power 5 school.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. But, you got to remember we're still extremely early. I mean, you talk about – you just brought up the February signing day that everybody knows so well. That's on ESPN. I mean, that's after these guys' senior season. So these are guys that they're getting after. Maybe they like something with. You're gonna see more – rankings come out, more updated rankings before the start of the season. So some of these 3 stars, I don't know if any of them, but they'll rise. I'm sure, they'll get inside, rise 5 or 6 more spots. Maybe one of them will get another star. A lot of the ones that are no stars right now, they're no stars because they just haven't gone to camps. I mean, that's what a lot of this is. So this is Memphis really going out and liking what they see. But also you got to remember, just to commit doesn't really mean much. I mean, Memphis could, as much as it sounds awful to do, they could easily go out and over-recruit over these guys.
Or the guy has a great year, and all of a sudden Ole Miss says, you know what?
Yeah.
We can offer you a little bit more NIL money.
Yeah, so, they've got 8 guys right now, which I think is really impressive. We're not even in July yet to have 8 guys. But, easily 6 of these guys will never show up on the Tigers campus for good or bad reasons.
So give me the best 2 that you like so far that probably will be on campus then.
Yeah, I like they've got a pair of offensive line commitments that are both 3 stars. Both, this Kobe Williams that they just got the other day, he's 6'6", 300 pounds, 3-star out of Amory, Mississippi. I like him. I think there's a lot there. The one I'm really excited about is Arrington Maiden, a quarterback from College Station, Texas.
I saw that. Yeah.
He is one that is only a 3-star right now, but I've seen a lot of people starting to hype him up.
What was Seth Hennigan? He wasn't more than a 3-star.
He wasn't much either out of high school. So I do think this is a guy. It seems like you can kind of look through this, and there's I think 3, maybe 4 Texas commits already. So you're seeing Memphis kind of getting that foothold in Texas and getting a lot of these players. And we know how good Texas high school football is. So, some of these guys that aren't ranked are going to be better than a guy you'll get out of maybe Mississippi or Florida just because that Texas football is so good in their drive, that will to play. You saw with Seth Hennigan. It is just much more than you see in other high schools.
A QB from Texas in this day and age.
Oh, yeah.
And if he's a coach's son, absolutely I want that kid.
This guy, if Memphis can keep this guy, I'll be surprised because I've started to see on social media he's going to camps and stuff, and it seems like a lot of people like what they see. I wouldn't be surprised if a couple Power 5 schools kind of throw an offer, say we'll redshirt you and try to bring you along in a couple of years.
Hope that is not the case if this kid is, as you say. You know that the new conference.
Tomorrow's the big day.
Tomorrow. So, real quick, If I say to you, how many teams from the very beginning of the American are still in the league? What would you say?
What do you mean?
How many of them are still here?
Oh, I don't.
Memphis is one of how many?
7?
4.
4. Good Lord.
The only teams left from the beginning of the American are Tulane, SMU, Tulsa, and Memphis.
That's way less than I thought it would be. That's incredible.
Although now that I think about it, USF would have been in there. Wasn't USF from the beginning?
Oh, I don't know. I think so, but I could be wrong.
Anyway, welcome to UAB, FAU, North Texas, Texas,
yeah.
San Antonio, Charlotte, and Rice.
Glad to have you.
You know what? When the Big East thing went away, everybody thought this was the end, and it wasn't. And this league turned out to be pretty good.
It really was, yeah.
I think Texas San Antonio is really a growing program. North Texas is solid.
Yep.
They always are a pretty good competitive program. UAB, Battle of the Bones, great basketball conference rivalry.
Yeah.
Well, you've got basketball and football with that. Easy access for both schools. Fans to get to it. I've always liked the UAB rivalry. I miss the Southern Miss rivalry, to be honest with you. The bottom line is you want to get in the Big 12.
Oh, of course.
Or if that doesn't work out, the ACC. Whatever the evolutionary train occurs, you want to be on the Power 5 side of it all. But if you're really being honest with yourself, you got big markets here. This isn't going to be the end like a lot of people think. And frankly, when they go to the 12-team playoff, you actually have a better chance. You're not making the money, but you got a better chance of getting in the playoff through this mix than you would being a bottom-tier Power 5 school.
Yeah, and I really do think, like you said, with UAB, UTSA, Florida Atlantic, there's a lot of teams that have a lot of momentum going for them when they come in here. Even Charlotte, I know a lot of people like to kind of kick Charlotte over because they've been really bad in a lot of sports, but I think they signed or maybe have committed a 4-star running back, so it seems like recruiting is kind of starting to roll in Charlotte. So I do think a lot of these schools, while they aren't the best schools when you hear them, I do think they have a lot of momentum as they enter the conference.
My friend, have a great 4th of July week. Folks out there, I'm going to be gone all of next week, but J-Mo and Brian Takis will take you through. I'll see you in a week and a half. Final portion brought to you by Grind City. Okay, holiday's just about here. Let me tell you a way to really help out the locals and really help out yourself. It's Grind City. Get what the doctor ordered. That's the great Pilsner, Poppy's Pills. There's the God Hopper, the India Pale Ale that is outstanding. New one, Thaddeus Amber Lager. That is really, really refreshing. And then there's the Belga Wheat Ale. It's a Belgian style like Blue Moon. You'll love this too. And there's still that craft malt liquor that's all about the Tigers, Tiger Tales. This brewery is terrific. Locals, father and son, they made a dream come true. It's right north of downtown on the river. It's got a great park in front of it. The building itself is beautiful. You can buy the product there or any of the spirit shops like the spirit shop at Poplar and St. Nick. It's just terrific. Happy holidays, everybody. Please be safe and stay cool.
Hi, Jimmy Stovall here with Corky's Barbecue.